Hi everyone, Bandanner here. I hope you're all doing well and have had a great week so far. Halfway through, getting towards that Friday and the weekend. Have you ever been in the position that you know a game exists that is really good, really epic, but you've just never got round to trying it? And no, I'm not necessarily talking about that 400 plus unplayed games in your Steam list. That can't just be me, right? I hope. No, I'm talking about games that aren't even necessarily on Steam, like the Mental Omega mod I recently tried. But in this case, I'm talking about Beyond All Reason, or BAR for short. It's a game that's been out a while now, and it's free to download and play, and if you're a fan of games like Total Annihilation, Supreme Commander, and of course I guess we include in that Planetary Annihilation, then this is definitely a game for you. An EPIC SCALE RTS, much like those aforementioned games, where you are building up a base and spamming out hundreds and hundreds of units and building up to getting nuclear weapons and, of course, anti-nuclear missile defense systems, as well as the usual wild array of experimental units. And all this on the backdrop of being able to have multiple AI, co-op play, and of course massive multiplayer games with 16 plus players. And while that sounds impressive on the face of it, what if I say when I'm saying 16 plus, I'm talking about 16 players per side, aka a 32 player RTS game. I mean, it sounds impressive, right? Not many RTS games can boast that. Now, one of my favourite games of all times is Supreme Commander and Supreme Commander Forged Alliance. And this is definitely trying to be along those lines. I don't think it's quite as polished as those games. Obviously, they're proper AAA titles, so to speak. However, this is a free game. It's modern. It runs on modern systems. It has multi-threading support, so there's no messing about with processors or anything. And it also has a fully integrated multiplayer, so you don't have to use Forged Alliance forever. No offense to the community team there, they've done an absolutely amazing job. But it's nice that there's an option here where everything is just all in one package. And you don't have to worry about buying an old game on Steam or somewhere else. One of the nice things about this game that I'm sure a lot of people will appreciate is the fact that it only takes up a couple of gigabytes once it's installed, and the download is even smaller than that. Obviously, this is the result of some design choices. For example, the fact the game is not the most graphically advanced. It's a little bit more simplified because they've chosen to go with lower poly models, and as a result it means they can have more models on screen. So when you're talking about thousands and thousands of units, you can't necessarily have them looking all sleek and highly advanced in terms of graphics all the time. On the bright side, regardless, the nuclear explosions look really nice. For those looking for a purely single-player experience, the game boasts a reasonable AI that will do unusual things like try and go around your defenses and destroy your resources. It's not silly, it will do sensible things that players might do as well. So it's not the easiest AI, though in fairness it's also not the hardest AI either. There's also a wide selection of single-player scenarios. These scenarios are quote-unquote incomplete, but you can play through them with a difficulty level of 0 to 15. They all have little objectives, and some of them the AI won't even attack you. It's an excuse for you to test out your build orders and unit compositions, etc, etc. In fact, I think when setting up a skirmish game, you can actually select an AI that's a fake AI that won't actually do very much. You can also select a type of AI as well, so whether it's defensive or aggressive and things like that. Though obviously there is no massive single player campaign, and I'm not sure if there ever will be for this game. However, all the AI stuff is available in multiplayer, so you can play co-op versus AI with your friends. Or indeed random strangers that you've met on the internet or in the game's lobby. The game has two main factions, the Armada and the Cortex. Both of these factions have about 195 unique units. I'm not sure if that also includes the buildings, to be honest, but either way, that's quite a lot of stuff. There is technically another faction called the Scavengers, but I'll let you explore that yourself. These guys are a mixture of those two, plus their own T4 experimental units, which are beyond what the other factions get. Units come in the form of either bots, land units, air units, hovercraft, or indeed ship. All of these have their respective Tech 1 building and then also a Tech 2 building later on when you go up to Tech 2. at which point you'll also be able to build the experimental platforms, which will give you the Tech 3 experimental units. As well as this wide array of actual units, you also have access to a wide array of defensive structures, both for on land and in the water. Some of these defensive structures are experimental weapons themselves, like a rapid-fire artillery piece, something along the lines of what you got in Supreme Commander, which was absolutely devastating. Of course, you might not even get to the point of Tech 2, perhaps you want to do Tech 1 and just outspam your opponent and try and overwhelm early game. Or do you wait it out, Tech up, and go in with a much bigger force? The choice is yours. And that's one of the wonderful things about this type of game, is you genuinely can play it in a variety of different ways. Now don't get me wrong, if you're going into competitive multiplayer, obviously there's going to be a meta and a particular way that people play. The people at the front will be spamming units, the people behind on a team will be teching up, etc, etc. I'm sure you've all been there in these older titles. That said, I'm of course then preaching to the choir. For those of you who have never played a game like this, there are loads of great guides for build orders, new player tutorials and things like that on YouTube for Beyond All Reason. It's got a very big community around it, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who are willing to teach you to play as well, and there'll be other new players all the time for multiplayer. And that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover today in this video. I wanted to introduce everyone to this EPIC SCALE free game that a lot of people won't even know is there, and admittedly it's taken me quite a few years to get round to playing it, but since I finally did, I wanted to share it with all of you, and you can go and check it out yourself. I'll leave a link down below in the description. As I say, it's completely free. I guess a final note should be that they don't consider it a finished game, and one day they hope to also release it on Steam when it's at that final point. But even then, the intention is that it will be free. Do let me know if you've played Beyond All Reason and what you thought of it down in the comments below, so everyone else can get some feedback on it as well, other than just mine. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all soon.